Good evening from New York. You're listening to the voice of Patricia Angelin, and this is All the Feels from New York at Alba Technique. Beautiful flowers are the gift of Billy at Holly Flowers Wholesale, and today I would like to speak briefly with you about, turning the camera, about a little exercise that you can do if you choose to do, that we do in a lot more elongated version of in our weekend intensive, which we just finished doing, on emotional intelligence and awareness of emotions. Last week I suggested that you do an olfactory, a smelling exercise, which I do. And I choose, as I remember telling you, 5 to 7. And you can, what I did forget to tell you, you choose 5 to 7 essential oils. And you put them maybe in a baggie or something on a cotton. And you breathe them in. And you see what your emotional reaction is to the particular sense. It's a very interesting thing to do. And to become more aware, more conscious, to become more able to realistically recognize what smell does to your emotional reactivity. Because smell, as you know, is a really serious stimulus to our nervous systems. And anything that is a stimulus will have a reaction in our body and be recognized in our minds. So, to my surprise, I did tell people that it was, that there was no, I didn't go and put some dog feces in one of them. So none of the smells were going to be intentionally challenging. And yet still, we found that of the 7 scents that I chose, many people had negative reactions to one or more out of them that pulled up memory for them, or simply they were just, it's fine, I know it's okay, but yeah, I don't like it, I don't care if I never smell that again. So that's the kind of thing from last week that I want you to consider if you haven't done it already, to make you have a better understanding of your own emotional reactivity out in your life world. Today, I would like to suggest that we think in terms of sound. Sound affects our emotions quite a lot. Some of us react to female voices that are raised in anger. And some of us have pretty extreme reactions. If we had a punishing grandmother or mother or teacher at a critical age who happened to be female, that can be problematic for some of us. Equally, raised masculine voices, even if it has nothing to do with us and we're just walking by them. I have this reaction sometimes. If men are yelling at each other, I always have a negative reaction internally to the fact that there are raised male voices around me. So I know this about myself. Very frequently, observing it realistically, they're not even mad at each other. I live in New York City, and there are some subcultures within this overall culture where raised voices is not perceived to be in any way contentious or confrontational. But I come from Ireland and from Minnesota and Wisconsin. And when I was growing up there, people didn't raise their voices. If anybody raised their voice to you, they were yelling at you. Even if they weren't. It was, don't yell at me. So the person, oh, sorry, yes. So that was not socially acceptable where I happened to grow up, because voices were supposed to be kept to a certainly low decibel level. I even had a conversation with an old friend in Ireland after I'd been living there for about a year, way back when, and he was always saying, Pat, Americans are loud. And I was, no, we're not. We're not louder than anybody else. It's just that, there's more room around us, and so we have to get our voices further away for people to hear us. It's just not as compact as Ireland is. And he's like, yeah, sure, right. And one day we were in a restaurant, and I'd been there quite a long time, and so I'd become accustomed to speaking like Irish people do, which is a much lower, much more quietly, and a much more intimate way of talking. And in New York, I might be talking to you like this. So he was right. There is a difference. And so Americans came in. I don't think they were New Yorkers, but Americans came in, and the entire restaurant went. Americans in their heads, whether they said it out loud or not. And my friend looked at me and he went, and I said, yes, you were right. And he said, Australians too. Americans are loud and Australians are loud. Even Irish Americans and even Irish Australians. And then we both laughed. And I accepted that he was right about the sound level. So that has something to do with the feelings. Some people gives them feelings of passion and joy when voices are raised, when people are talking loudly, and it feels like a party to them. To other more introverted persons, it feels like an assault. And I'm not saying that lightly. It does feel like an assault to my neurosystem because I tend to be a little gentle and I am an introvert clinically. So I would like you to think about music in terms of sound. Sound can be heard when one is in the womb. It's now been shown in a study done, it'd be about 30 years ago now, I think, that children in the womb can hear, and they can come out and recognize, move their little heads toward the voice of the father and the voice of the mother if both parents have been in the home during the pregnancy. If a mother plays certain music, the child will react to the music that the child is familiar with. So it just shows us that even before smell develops, which it does right out of utero, because we need to smell where the milk is, and we need to get to the source of food, but with sound, it's already there. And so I developed an exercise that I'm going to suggest you might try for yourself. And that is, you listen to music, just the normal music you would listen to, except for choose music without any lyrics, so that it doesn't have intellectual content on its own because of words. And listen to things with the lyrics. Without lyrics, and notice what your emotional reactivity is to it. And then, once you get a really clear sense of maybe two things, like that one makes you very, very happy, each time you hear it, it creates happiness, and each time you hear it, it creates sadness. And ideally, it would be something that you wouldn't have any kind of a situation already in your life with, like something wonderful was happening and so you're happy with that when you hear that because it was playing when the happy thing happened. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the sound itself. Give yourself an exercise of sound itself and choose something that makes you sad and choose something that makes you happy. And then do your own little experiment and ask 2 or 3 people to listen to each thing that you have recorded and sit there with them just very stoic if you can, and letting whatever's happening to you happen inside and not out. And then ask the person how they felt listening to that piece of music that you had chosen. You, I think, would be interested to find that very few of the things that we individually think are going to make other people happy too, frequently they don't make them happy. Ditto with, say, sadness or fear or anger. So that is what I would like to suggest to you as a little challenge. It's great fun. And then that way you notice how you are unique even more. That other people do not have the same emotional reactivity that you have, or indeed that I have. Because we all have an assumption internally that other people are like us, and some of us are fighting that. No, we're not. I am unique. I am individual. I think you can take that for granted. You are unique. You are individual. You are unrepeatable and you are infinitely valuable as a human being. You are not only enough, you are way more than enough, merely by your beingness. But you have senses, and your senses can teach you a lot about your own individual emotional reactivity. How sensitive are you to smell? How sensitive are you to sound in your emotions? So that's what I wanted to say to you. I want to tell you, do a little exercise, have some fun with yourself, and allow yourself, why is this not clicking in? Allow yourself to notice, simply to notice. So I am Patricia Angelin. You are at All the Feels. And I'm in New York at Alba Technique. Do join us in February for the next weekend, where we would do these exercises and more in a very structured way. I think you would find yourself to be very interested. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next week.